Georgia is able to hold on and take on Ole Miss and win against the Rebels. Joe, when you recap the Georgia Bulldogs being able to hold on here and beat Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss, what are your thoughts?
Gunner Stockton, by the way, is plus 1,000 for the Heisman. If anybody on FanDuel, if anyone wants to place a bet on this.
Right here? Every time that they need to make a play, I feel like it's him.
That's what I'm getting at here. I'm letting everybody know, oh, hey, there's some pretty good value for this because Gunner Stockton is too far down on the Heisman rankings at the current moment and for Heisman odds. He has had good production. He had 5 touchdowns in this game. He had 83% completion percentage on his passes. And then he also had all these super gutsy runs. He had all these super tight, important throws. I don't get what the negative thoughts on this kid are. I don't know where they're coming from. What does he do that's not great? Is it just because he's not 6'4" and he doesn't have a gigantic arm? He is the epitome of fantastic college quarterback that does everything that he needs to do to help his team win. And like what you just said, yeah, seriously, every time that they have needed a conversion on third down or a big play, he's made it. He's converted. He has shown up. I think that we obviously need to acknowledge Georgia's defense is still a complete mess. It is a serious issue that they got 0 sacks in this game. But if we're going to have this production from Gunner Stockton, them winning 10 games this year is totally plausible because Stockton keeps them in every single game because they can score so many points.
Well, listen, I don't think last night is an indictment on Ole Miss at all. I think it's a plus. Defensively, they are very bad. But, Joe, they came out in 5 straight drives, scored 5 touchdowns. I mean, with all due respect to Kirby Smart, with all due respect to Glenn Schumann, with all due respect to everybody, here's the truth. The truth is you have more talent on defense than what they have on offense, and you got outcoached. That is the truth. And but I'm going to, Georgia fans, before you start screaming at us, you found a way to win, and they found a way to win against Tennessee too. Mm-hmm. But this Ole Miss team, I think, should have gotten more respect last night than what people are giving them. They're still a really good team offensively. Joe, the defense has issues, and they gave up 5 straight touchdowns. That can't happen. They got run all over. I mean, there were moments and times where statistically you would look and say, Blake, no, we didn't. And then I look at the third down conversions and say, yeah, you did. But here's the thing about Georgia defensively. When they had to have it, they had it. I felt like in the second half, I saw a very young, sophomore-led defense who stood up and made plays. And Trinidad Chambliss didn't have a choice. They had multiple 3-and-outs. They couldn't move the football, and they made a decision, and they stopped them. But every single time, to your point, that Ole Miss would go down and score, Gunner Stockton would keep them in the game. You lose this game last year. You find a way to lose it. But I think that, Joe, the way that they run the football, again, another game for Georgia with over 220-plus rushing yards is absolutely insane. And they keep being stubborn about running the football. Offensively, Mike Bobo and Gunner Stockton have saved you out of a lot of situations. And I look at what Bobo has done with the tight ends. Lawson Lucky got a hat trick yesterday, 3 touchdowns. You've been able to find ways to win in multiple ways when your defense is not the strength of your team right now. It's been what Mike Bobo and Gunner Stockton in this offensive line, who, by the way, is still banged up, has been able to find a way. But Georgia didn't get out coached in this way. Ole Miss was one of the worst teams in the SEC in run defense. And even when you were down 9 points, you didn't get away from Bowens. You didn't get away from this run game. And one of your biggest scores was the I almost said Carson Beck, and I would have gotten canceled by Georgian fans. But the Gunner Stockton zone read touchdown.
Yep.
You stayed to who you were because you knew if you kept staying to who you were going to win. Now, Joe, we got to recalibrate about our thoughts on Georgia. You cannot let this wide receiver room that you just faced off against is not the best one that you will see. It's just not. And I wonder moving forward what Georgia's going to be able to do. I don't think that there's a team that they can't beat moving forward. and the teams they play in the regular season, but you're going to have to start cleaning some things up defensively if you want to get where you want to go.
Yeah, this was one of those games, and I said this in other locations. I didn't really say it on this show. It was one of those games where you could tell at home Kirby Smart recognizes the importance of needing to get the win and then it reestablishing the trajectory of the team for the rest of the year. They needed to win in order to stay in the SEC championship conversation. I think looking in the SEC, most of the teams Georgia has the capability to beat. The problem is any team that they face for the rest of the year, I think that they can finish the rest of the season unscathed. My fear is that they're going to get to the college football playoff, and that's when their secondary is going to, and their secondary and their pass rush is going to completely cook them. And I'm not trying to be super negative on Georgia fans, but like that's really where this thing is going to come from.
Remember, we're Georgia homers.
Right.
Remember now.
Right. There's not many remaining teams on Georgia's schedule that I think are really going to challenge them through the air until they theoretically, if they got to the SEC championship game. But like I see a world where if they played in Ohio State, they would be on their heels. That is not a game that you're going to win because there's just too much talent at receiver. There's just too much speed. I'd even argue, and maybe this is a controversial one,
Indiana.
I would say a team like Indiana would put up, even if you played really like toe-to-toe with them, shootout style football, I would take Indiana to win that game because they've got two great receivers and a tremendous quarterback who, when he's had time to throw, is going to eat you alive. So that's where I come down with this, Blake, is I saw a team worthy of at least going 10-2 and getting to the college football playoff. I do not think that this is a weakened Georgia team, but they're mortal. They're more mortal than they've been in a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're one of the teams that's in the top 8 mix that if things don't go perfectly, there is a legitimate shot that they lose.
Well, hold on. Let me just say this. People look at Ole Miss and don't calibrate that they're only a one-loss team. I don't think Ole Miss
is very good. I got to be completely honest with you. I think it was an impressive win. I have problems with that defense. That defense is ass.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You say that about Ole Miss. Georgia gave up just as many yards and points.
Okay.
So you can't really calibrate that in reference to, hey, Georgia, you can be a 10-2 team and make the playoff, but Ole Miss, who went 5 for 5 in touchdowns, is the same thing. I listen, from a talent perspective, you're 1,000% right. 1,000% Georgia has more talent on the field. The problem is, Joe, they went on the road and lost. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't look at that as an indictment on them at all.
Okay. There is a difference in the defensive performance between these two teams. Ole Miss only having 88 rushing yards and being as one-sided as they were offensively is why I don't have faith in this team. Yeah, this is my whole point, is that Georgia is absolutely flawed. But I think that Ole Miss has a lot of talent. They have a big talent gap between them and some teams.
Sure.
And the only thing that's kept them alive is Trinidad Chambliss. Like, literally the only thing that keeps them alive is Chambliss. 90% of the time, he is the one guy who keeps them in games. And I think that's incredibly volatile to have to live and die off of that. We have context to know that when Chambliss wasn't starting at the beginning of the year and Austin Simmons was looking as young and as shaky as he did, that they could barely move the ball. They were barely outscoring Kentucky, who's awful. I do not like this Ole Miss team. I think that their defense is bad. I think that they have some solid players at running back and at receiver. I don't think that their offensive line's very good. I think that they have so many problems. They didn't give up
the sack.
That's not true. Ole Miss didn't give up a sack?
Yeah,
yes, that's true. They did. Sorry, I'm mixing up with Alabama's stats. I was reading the wrong part of my notes. Blake, I still do not think if they couldn't get more than 88 rushing yards, that is the indictment.
Yeah, but here's the problem, though. On 5 of those scoring drives, they're running it right at them, and they're busting them wide open. I get what you're saying about the yardage, but when you watch the game and you got 3 third downs, 2 of them on 3rd and 6, and you're running it right at Georgia and getting first downs, I'm sorry, Joe, they did run right at them. The yards in this one is a little bit fugazi to me in reference to Chambliss sitting back in the pocket, and they're throwing the ball all over the place, and you're running it right down their throat on 3rd downs. That's the reason why they kept popping it in.
They held Kawan Lacey to 31 yards on 12 carries. He averaged 2.6 yards per carry. They wouldn't have had 88 rushing yards if it wasn't for Chambliss.
I understand that. I'm not saying that they were impressive, but at the same time, they still went 5 for 5. So I understand, and they went on the road to do it.
That's fine. I mean, but this is my point. You can have a really good quarterback who's a really good player and who's really fun to watch, and the rest of your team can be mediocre.
You know what? I would love to see Miami go into Athens and put up 35 points. They can't do it.
Yes, they could.
No, they couldn't.
Yes, they could.
They can't put 35 points on Florida, and they can't put 35 points up on Louisville. And
one game doesn't define a team's season. I'm going to keep saying that teams are allowed to slip up now. This is not old school college football where the best teams are unstoppable. Again, I'll bring it up. Ohio State is another one of these examples.
They went toe-to-toe with a better quarterback in Gunner Stockton than Carson Beck. They went up against a better team and lost in a one-score game with a better quarterback for Georgia. Carson Beck could go into these situations and piss down his leg.
Sure. I still think that
Carson Beck would have not gone.
Louisville's defense statistically is far tougher than Georgia's.
Yeah. And offensively, they ain't that. Shit, they're 120. They were
actually, for the narratives, I would really be excited to see a Miami versus Georgia. Yeah,
our show might break.
That'd be sick, though. That would be sick.
It would be. We'll see. Speaking of Miami, nope. That's after this one.